as we've seen, we've got a lot of projects going on around here. Pretty much always. Every time we come up with one that we've completed, 2 more arise. This one's been one of my dreams because I had this Jeep for about 3 years now, and it was a Canadian Jeep, it was a Michigan Jeep, and then it was an Ohio Jeep. So it's kind of the worst and the worst of the rust and the salt. That has actually eaten away the underside down here where the body actually mounts to the frame. And the frame is starting to have some issues, but I don't think it's bad enough that I can't fix it right now. I got a nice spider web going on here. But actually, if you look inside, you can see the top side. If you imagine how bad the top side is, and that's actually the better side of the two, it's actually worse underneath. If we go around the other side, you can see some of the other stuff. So I've got another tub, which is the main body that I got down south in southern Indiana. I wish I'd have gone a little further, because even though it was sold to me as rust-free, when I got there, there was some rust that I'm having to work on cleaning up right now. As you can see, this one, the seat belt, the whole floorboard over here, you can see right through to the ground. And it was getting pretty bad, but we went to Moab a year ago, almost to the day, and some of the shelves that we dropped off there of big rocks, when I hit down, basically all those body mounts that were rusting gave way underneath, so it wasn't really safe to drive after that. So now I'm going to rebuild it. I've already started, as you can see over here. I've cleared out the whole tub, and I've started tearing apart everything, where I'm going to get it down to basically the frame, the axles, the transmission, and the engine. From there, I'll do a little bit of cleanup on the frame. If there are any rust spots that need repair, I'll do that repair. Hopefully I can just clean up the rust and use some POR 15, which is about the best you can get as far as rust protection on a frame. It's actually, it stands for paint over rust. So if you're looking at doing something where you've already got rust forming and you want to just kind of protect it from getting worse, POR 15 is great stuff. I've also got a new power steering pump, the gearbox. Because the gearbox, as you can see, it's been leaking for probably 2 of the 3 years I've had it, and it's getting worse and worse to where pretty much every time I was driving it was getting low. At the time, those were hard to find, and if you could, they were about $1,000. Recently I found a bunch of them came on the market and the price dropped to about $200. So I picked one up. As now that I've got this torn apart, part of this project is going to be pulling that out and throwing the new one in, checking for leaks. I can't really check for leaks till I get it all back together because I can't start the thing up right now. Steering column is literally laying on the floor in the garage right now, so there's no way to turn a key. The project here still requires, as far as the old Jeep, requires, my next step I think is going to be drop the windshield off, take the roll cage off, and then start jacking the body up so I can get some of the wires and the evap lines and stuff like that from underneath disconnected so we can lift this body off and be down to the frame. Here's the other half of the project. And it's actually a mess in here because as I've been stripping stuff off, I've been pulling it in to be cleaned up. And this is actually the donor tub. This is the one I said I got down south. So as you can see, I've already kind of started working on sanding off all the clear coat. And that is because of something I'll get to here in a minute. But before we get to that, we've got a lot of other bits and pieces that I have to work on cleaning up for that same purpose. I did have to buy a new seat base for the driver's side because the old one, that driver's side floorboard, was so rusted that it actually, the seat base was pretty rusted as well. It had kind of come apart. This is actually the rear tire carrier, front bumper, and winch. That's all got to be cleaned up too because although it's only like 3 years old, you can see it's rusting pretty good. The powder coat on those wasn't the best job from the factory. I think it was probably some cheap Chinese stuff. Now the donor tub did have a little more rust than I had hoped for. So what I've got here is a replacement torque box. This is basically that body mount I was telling you about that's all rusted out on the old one. I could have possibly fixed the old tub, but it was so rusty it wouldn't have been worth the work, because it would have meant all new floorboards, it would have meant body panels cut out of the sides. The whole thing was pretty much junk, whereas this one just has a few parts to patch. So over here you can see I've got the first torque box off and I've started cleaning it up. This one, like I said, did have some rust, so I've got a piece over here and I'm going to slip by you and try and find the piece. Where did it end up? Oh, it's right here. I'll have to cut that out. So I've got a piece over here, and this is something that a friend of ours and I kind of fabricated with help of another guy. And basically, it's a new piece that I'm going to cut that out. We're going to weld this in, and I've never welded before, so it's all a learning process for me. Probably going to have to cut out this corner because of that dimple, but I'm not sure. I'm going to have to look on my Jeep, see if that dimple is there for a reason. But then, you know, once I weld that in, then that torque box goes over all of this, and it goes up through here, and there are the bolts that screw into the body from the frame, hold everything on. And I'll do the same thing on the bottom down there. You can see the rust is down there. I think you can see that's actually where one of those bolts was. And that's actually another one. You can kind of see here how this one's twisted. That's because this vehicle was actually in a front-end collision. So it was pretty well totaled, but the body itself, for the most part, stayed straight, except for these body mounts. So that's another reason we're replacing the torque boxes on this. I also have new, part of the mess, we've got, like I said, always projects going on. And not enough space for all the stuff that's going on. But I've got new front fenders for it as well, and I've got to be careful with this. If you ever get these, be careful because they have very sharp edges. I cut myself unboxing it actually. But that's the new whole front fender, so I'm probably going to chop this bit right here and chop this and just save those holes, which are actually the fender mount holes for the flare. But I'm going to chop those because I have a little more flex in my suspension than that, and it kind of hits the tire on there when I get on a good sized rock or something. And that was part of what gave way on the old one. As the rust had started to eat away, when the tire pushed up here, the rust actually cracked right across the top. But all of this, once I've got it maintained, I'll go back to where I started here inside and tell you about why I took all the clear coat off the paint. I'm actually going to be doing what's called a Raptor liner, which is like a do-it-yourself at home spray-on bed liner. Kind of like Line-X, but cheap, do-it-yourself, and probably not as good a quality as Line-X. But it is, for like a 4-liter kit, it's like $200. So as long as you've got a compressor that can handle it, and the time and the energy to put into the prep work, which I will say, from everything I've read, the prep work is everything. So make sure if you try to do Raptor liner, you are willing to put in the time to get everything sanded down. If there are spots that you can't get, U-Pull, the company that makes Raptor liner, actually has a spray-on like an adhesion promoter, so it actually gets those spots where the clear coat is, and it'll eat through it a little bit so that it can get a good connection and good adhesion, I guess. But what I have to do is take off all that clear coat, because obviously with that clear coat it's designed to make stuff not stick, so you don't have sap or bird poo stuck to your paint. Now, one of the things, when I first started tearing these out, you can see there were a lot of holes that are pretty gnarly from me trying to get the spot welds out. And I was just using a drill, a hammer, and a little pry bar. I did a lot of damage to the tub because I didn't have the right tools. I'll tell you this, at Harbor Freight, I got this little tool for $5. I should have done that from the start, because I spent hours and hours and hours getting probably 2/3 of these spot welds out. And then in the next 15 minutes with this tool, I got the other third out. And they were clean drilled spots. I mean, you can see the ones here that are nice. That's because I used the spot weld cutter. They also have these on Amazon. You can get a kit with like 20 of them and a bunch of little replacements. Super cheap as well. Another bit I haven't gotten to use yet, but I got it off Amazon fairly cheap too, is this, and it's actually meant, instead of the pry bar, if you can get it under an edge, you just tap it with a hammer. So once I get some spot welds out, you know, you can't really drill out the spot weld entirely. So you get it most of the way, and you tap this in, and it basically rips the two pieces apart. It's a seam breaker. So now that I've got most of this sanded, I've still got to weld that on, flip the whole thing over, do the other side too. And then I'll be using probably not isopropyl alcohol. That's just been for initial use, just so I could get some of the dust off so I could see where I still needed to sand. But I'll have to use like a grease remover and just get this completely clean. I haven't decided on exactly what I'm going to use yet for that. But I want to make sure that this thing is spotless so that when I spray that on, it's good for the lifetime. Down here you can actually see some of those evap lines I was telling you about that I'm going to have to get off the tub before I lift it, because these are connected to the gas tank, which sits right about here in the Jeep. I've also got electrical wires coming across, which I'm having a little trouble getting out right now. They connect to the evap canister, to the lights, to a few other things. And I just got to get all that out of this tub and the old tub. But that's kind of where I'm at right now. So it's been a much longer project than I had hoped for. My goal is to have it done before August, because we've got a group trip coming up. Hopefully I can get it done, but it's been much, much slower than I had expected. So we're back outside. I'm going to be reusing the doors, and part of the mess, we've taken apart the deck. That'll be another video. So we've still got a bunch of wood laying around. We've still got a bunch of tools laying around. But I am going to be reusing these doors, and that will mean that I'll have to sand those smooth too to get that Raptor liner to adhere. You can see this step is actually hanging off, and that's because I got two of the body mount bolts out, and then the third one, the body mount was actually so rusted that I basically just ripped it right off the body. So once I get the body off, I'm probably going to have to cut that bolt, or maybe I can grab it with pliers and unscrew it. But it's still hanging. These are actually the body mount bolts that were in there, so I've got a whole new body mount kit because the rubber, it all dried up, it's cracked, it's broken, it's rusted, everything's junk. That's where we're at. That's basically what we've still got to do. Hopefully, I'm hoping that the windshield frame isn't too rusted so I can just reuse it. Usually where they tend to rust is actually underneath here, so I won't know until I flip it down. But yeah, I think that's about it. I guess, like I said, about a year ago, we took it on a trip to Moab. I've taken it snow wheeling a few times, and I've taken it up to northern Michigan wheeling. So here you'll see a few clips of some of our trips, and these are things that we hope to do again in the future.
He's out of his frickin' mind.
You said it. From your lips right to God's ears. Whoa, mama!
I would like to point out that our driver has a heart condition. It's the easy day.
Give us room, please.
Underneath the stars.
Oh God.
I'll be honest, that just got my heart freaking racing when we started twisting.
You weren't the one looking at the ground. Playing the Say What You See game. Hold on, we may be stuck.
Jeeps don't get stuck.
Honey?
Hold on, Cal. Ruby's stuck.
Not Ruby.
Look up.